Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful for You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Steffi's entire world seemed to collapse the moment she learned the news, her chest tightening as if the air itself had betrayed her, leaving her almost gasping for control over the storm raging inside her. She had known that Liam's affections had been complicated, a tug-of-war between her and hope that had plagued her heart for months, maybe even years, and yet, hearing the words that confirmed the unthinkable, that hope had finally secured Liam's hand in a formal engagement, felt like a punch that knocked the wind out of her, a cruel twist of fate that she couldn't swallow. And as she paced the polished floors of Forrester Creations, the familiar surroundings now seemed like a gilded cage trapping her fury and heartbreak simultaneously. She clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles whitened, her nails digging into her palms as though trying to ground herself against the tidal wave of emotion. Her mind raced, fragments of memories flashing in dizzying succession. Late night conversations with Liam, shared laughter, stolen kisses in hallways, the quiet intimacy of moments she had believed were theirs alone, all now rendered meaningless by Hope's triumphant announcement, and she felt a surge of betrayal so sharp that it pierced through every rational thought, leaving only the raw, unfiltered need to act, to reclaim the life she thought she had secured, the life that now, seemingly, had been ripped from her grasp. Her voice, usually controlled and precise when issuing directives in the boardroom or speaking with her family, trembled with barely contained wrath as she summoned Liam to her office, the weight of her presence filling the space before she even spoke, her eyes narrowing into daggers that seemed to strip away any defenses he might try to erect. And when he entered, hesitantly, sensing the storm that awaited him, she didn't waste a second on pleasantries or preamble. Her words were sharp, slicing through the tension like a scalpel. "Leave Liam, or I'll fire you," she spat, each syllable a warning and a challenge wrapped into one, the ultimatum echoing off the walls as if the very building held its breath alongside her. And Liam, caught between the two women who had defined his life in different ways, felt the weight of impossibility pressing down, his heart pounding as he tried to explain, to find the right words to calm Steffi, to soothe the hurt that radiated from her every pore. But he knew deep down that no words could bridge the chasm that had opened between them, a rift carved by Hope's cunning, by timing, by the relentless march of fate that seemed intent on leaving him paralyzed between love and loyalty. Steffi's mind, sharp and strategic as ever, immediately began calculating the fallout, the consequences of this revelation on her personal life, her career, her family, and the intricate web of alliances and rivalries at Forrester Creations. She thought of Ridge and Taylor, of Brooke's inevitable glee at Hope's victory, of Thomas who would no doubt see opportunity in chaos, and of Liam himself, caught in the middle, innocent yet complicit, the man she had loved and lost and still loved in ways she barely understood, and every memory, every feeling, every longing coalesced into an overwhelming urge to reclaim control, to assert dominance over a situation that had spun wildly beyond her grasp. Her voice dropped to a low, icy whisper, the kind that sent shivers down anyone's spine, as she outlined the terms of her ultimatum, each word carefully chosen to convey authority, to make clear that she was not a woman to be trifled with. And Liam's face, a mix of anguish, guilt, and helplessness, mirrored the tension that crackled like static electricity in the air between them, the energy so potent it seemed to pulse through the walls, through the furniture, through the very floor beneath their feet. He opened his mouth to speak, to reason, to plead, but Steffi, sensing weakness, sensing hesitation, intensified her stare, a silent command to listen, to acknowledge the seriousness of the threat. And in that moment, time seemed to stretch, every second loaded with the gravity of the decision he now faced: stand by Hope and risk losing Steffi completely, or defy her and risk the collapse of his professional and personal life as he knew it. And yet, as much as anger and fury consumed her, there was a trembling layer beneath, a raw, aching vulnerability that few ever saw, the kind of pain that comes from loving deeply and being forced to confront the fact that life, love, and loyalty rarely align in ways that satisfy the heart, a truth that left her feeling exposed, naked in her grief yet burning with the desire to fight, to not be defeated, to not let Hope's engagement stand as a testament to what Steffi had lost, what she had endured, and what she would continue to fight for. She envisioned confrontations yet to come, whispered schemes in dimly lit hallways, strategic conversations with allies who could tip the balance, and a calculated series of moves designed not only to reclaim Liam but to ensure that Hope understood, on every level, the cost of her victory, the pain her success had inflicted, and the consequences of underestimating Steffi. All the while, Liam stood frozen, the engagement ring now a symbol of a future he was uncertain about, the weight of Steffi's ultimatum pressing down on him like a physical force, and in his heart, a war raged between love and obligation, desire and conscience, the easy simplicity of following Hope's path and the messy, emotional complexity of Steffi's defiance, leaving him paralyzed in indecision, acutely aware that whatever choice he made would reshape lives, redefine relationships, and leave scars that might never fully heal. And as Steffi's gaze bore into him, unwavering and relentless, he realized that this moment, this confrontation, was more than a personal battle. It was a statement, a declaration that Steffi was unyielding, unbending, and that she would not allow her love, her loyalty, or her future to be trifled with by anyone, not Hope, not Liam, not even the whims of fate itself. And as the seconds stretched into what felt like an eternity, the tension in the room crystallized into a moment of pure, dramatic electricity, one that would ripple through the lives of everyone involved, forever altering the delicate balance of love, power, and ambition in the intertwined worlds of Steffi, Liam, and Hope, leaving every character poised on the edge of decisions that could ignite heartbreak, betrayal, and unforeseen consequences, a storm that promised to leave no soul untouched, no relationship unchanged, and no heart unscathed, the reverberations of which would echo far beyond the polished walls of Forrester creations, into the private chambers of home and heart, shaping destinies and entangling fates in a web of emotion, strategy, and human complexity that was at once devastating and mesmerizing, a testament to the relentless drama that defined their lives. And as Steffi's fury burned bright, unrelenting, and absolute, the room seemed to pulse with the promise of confrontation, revelation, and the raw, unfiltered force of love and jealousy colliding in ways that only Forrester creations could contain, leaving everyone, especially Liam, suspended in a delicate, terrifying balance between choice and consequence, passion and pragmatism, as the future unfolded, unpredictable, unforgiving, and utterly enthralling. Steffi's fury didn't exist in a vacuum. It reverberated outward, touching everyone who even remotely orbited the lives of Liam, Hope, and herself. Starting with Hope, who, upon learning of Steffi's ultimatum, felt a mixture of defiance and fear, a tightening in her chest as she realized that her engagement, the symbol of her victory in the long-running battle for Liam's love, might now be threatened by Steffi's unrelenting determination, and she couldn't help but glance at Liam, searching for reassurance in his eyes, only to find him trapped, torn, and increasingly silent, a living embodiment of the conflict that had consumed their lives. For so long, she had imagined this moment countless times, rehearsing conversations in her mind, envisioning the perfect engagement announcement, the heartfelt acceptance from Liam, the delight of Ridge and Brooke, yet the reality of Steffi's presence, angry, commanding, and unwilling to be ignored, shattered that illusion, replacing it with a tense, fragile landscape in which every word could ignite a firestorm that would engulf them all. Ridge, ever the peacemaker in theory but a man with his own ego and complex loyalties, was caught in the crossfire, his thoughts racing as he observed the tension, knowing full well that Steffi's temper was a force of nature and that her ultimatum to Liam was no empty threat, that firing him wasn't just a possibility, it was probable if she felt crossed, and Ridge's own feelings, ever intertwined with those of Brooke, Hope, and the family legacy, added layers of complication. He wondered, not for the first time, how long the three of them could continue dancing around each other, love and ambition tangling into near-permanent knots that seemed impervious to logic, timing, or intervention. Brooke, meanwhile, relished the drama, her face lighting up with a mixture of glee and maternal satisfaction as she watched Steffi confront Liam, seeing in the exchange not only the culmination of Steffi's frustration but also the vindication of Hope's persistence, a tiny victory in a decades-long saga of rivalries, secrets, and manipulations, and she found herself weighing carefully how much to interfere, how much to hold back, and how much to subtly stoke the fires without appearing overtly partisan, knowing that in this web of family, business, and desire, even a small gesture could tip the balance in unexpected ways. Thomas, on the other hand, silently observed, a sly grin tugging at the corner of his lips, already calculating the opportunities Steffi's rage might create, the vulnerabilities that Liam's indecision might expose, and the ways he could subtly insert himself into the chaos to manipulate outcomes in his favor. To him, this wasn't just a confrontation, it was a chessboard, and he was determined to be 2 moves ahead, to exploit the raw emotions on display for maximum advantage, while outwardly feigning detachment and concern. Back in the office, Liam's inner turmoil intensified with every passing second, each of Steffi's words embedding themselves in his consciousness like jagged shards he couldn't extract. He opened his mouth to speak, stammered, swallowed, and ultimately faltered, his body language betraying his helplessness, his desire to appease both women, to reconcile love and obligation, to avoid destruction in the personal and professional spheres, yet knowing deep down that some choices were impossible to make without collateral damage, and the reality of that truth weighed on him like an anchor pulling him deeper into a sea of indecision, guilt, and longing. The engagement ring on his finger, once a symbol of triumph and joy, now felt like a chain, binding him to an outcome that conflicted with every fiber of his being, and he couldn't shake the image of Steffi, resolute, unwavering, her eyes flashing with the intensity of a woman who had loved deeply, been hurt profoundly, and was now refusing to allow circumstance, timing, or hope's calculated victories to dictate her life. It was a fearsome and magnetic force, the kind that left him simultaneously drawn in and terrified, unable to escape the gravity of her presence. Meanwhile, the office itself, usually a hub of creativity, ambition, and polite rivalry, seemed to constrict around them, the air thick with tension, every sound amplified, the faint hum of computers, the shuffle of papers, the subtle intake of breath from onlookers who had gathered without invitation yet could not look away from the unfolding storm, each person acutely aware that history was being written in that moment, the personal intersecting with the professional, the private entangled with the public in ways that only Forrester creations could host, a crucible in which relationships, careers, and reputations hung precariously. Steffi's voice, unwavering and sharp, cut through the tension repeatedly, the ultimatum a constant drumbeat that left no room for misunderstanding, leave Liam, or face consequences, and each repetition sent ripples through the room, forcing every observer to reckon with the reality that Steffi was not bluffing, that her fury was not fleeting, that her authority and her love were both weapons in this high-stakes confrontation. Hope, desperate to assert her claim and to protect what she had worked so tirelessly to achieve, spoke next, her words carefully measured yet tinged with the frustration of someone who had endured her own battles for love, who had fought for every inch of Liam's attention and affection, and she attempted to appeal to reason, to logic, to emotion, to remind both Steffi and Liam that life was not a zero-sum game, that love could exist in multiple dimensions, that engagement was a commitment to a future built together. And yet even as she spoke, she felt the tug of Steffi's raw, almost primal energy, a reminder that the past was never truly gone, that old wounds, old connections, old passions could flare at any moment, threatening to disrupt even the most carefully constructed plans, leaving Hope anxious, vigilant, and fiercely protective of the fragile future she was trying to safeguard. Ridge, standing slightly to the side, felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, aware that he had to mediate without appearing weak, to uphold the family's integrity while respecting each woman's claims and emotions, and the balancing act felt almost impossible as he watched Liam squirm, Hope plead, and Steffi remain unyielding, her every movement radiating the intensity of someone for whom compromise was unacceptable, and in that instant, he realized that history was repeating itself, that the same patterns of love, rivalry, and confrontation that had defined decades of their family's drama were playing out again, with slightly altered players and new stakes, yet the same ferocity, the same emotional volatility, the same human cost. Even minor players, employees, and friends in the office couldn't help but feel the gravitational pull of the scene, whispered speculations, stifled gasps, furtive glances, each person feeling simultaneously voyeuristic and implicated in the intensity of the showdown. Every gesture, every word, every twitch of a facial muscle seemed magnified, codified into an unspoken narrative that would be retold countless times over lunches, meetings, and family gatherings, a living testament to the power of emotion and the irresistible pull of conflict. Steffi, sensing that the tension was reaching its apex, leaned in slightly, her eyes never leaving Liam's, and in that moment, it was as if she was speaking not just to him but to every observer, every player in the tangled drama of love, loyalty, and ambition, declaring without words that she would not be sidelined, that she would not be diminished, that her heart, her passion, her intelligence, and her will were forces to be reckoned with, forces that could not be negotiated, circumvented, or ignored. And Liam, finally finding his voice after what seemed like an eternity, attempted to navigate the impossible terrain of his own feelings, struggling to express love, commitment, and regret simultaneously, only to find that words fell short, that emotions overflowed, that reality could not be neatly explained or justified, and that he was now fully ensnared in a confrontation whose ramifications would ripple outward, touching every life, every relationship, and every plan he had ever considered in ways that were unpredictable, unavoidable, and unrelenting. As the minutes stretched into what felt like hours, the confrontation escalated, the emotions thickening into a palpable storm, each participant fully aware that there was no easy resolution, that compromises would leave scars, that decisions made in the heat of the moment could echo across the family, the company, and their intertwined lives for years to come, and that no matter how this played out, none of them would emerge unchanged. Steffi's anger, Liam's indecision, Hope's fear and defiance, Ridge's mediation, Brooke's quiet satisfaction, Thomas's scheming, all coalesced into a volatile symphony of human complexity, desire, ambition, and love, a perfect encapsulation of the drama that had defined their lives and that promised to shape their futures in ways both thrilling and terrifying. Steffi's fury was a living, breathing force, consuming every fiber of her being the moment she realized that Hope and Liam's engagement was no longer just a rumor, no longer just a possibility whispered in corridors or over coffee. It was a reality, an undeniable, public, formal commitment that seemed to mock every secret hope, every late-night conversation, every quiet, intimate moment she had shared with Liam, and she felt as if the floor beneath her had opened up, threatening to swallow her whole, her heart pounding with a combination of grief, rage, and disbelief, while her mind, sharp and calculating as ever, began running through the consequences of the revelation, the potential strategies for reclaiming Liam, the intricate web of personal, familial, and professional stakes that now demanded her full attention, and she realized with a chilling clarity that this was not a battle she could fight lightly, not a confrontation she could face passively, because Hope's engagement wasn't just a milestone in a romance, it was a declaration of victory in a war that had defined the last several years of their intertwined lives, a war fought in whispered accusations, stolen kisses, secret conversations, business deals, family gatherings, and quiet moments that carried the weight of decades, and Steffi, never one to surrender without a fight, felt the familiar surge of determination that had propelled her through countless emotional storms, the kind of fierce, unrelenting energy that demanded action, clarity, and dominance, and she knew instinctively that this moment required nothing less than a full assertion of her power, her presence, and her will. Her hands clenched into fists so tightly that her nails dug into her palms as she paced the polished floors of Forrester Creations, the environment around her, a place normally suffused with creativity, ambition, and elegance, transforming into a crucible of tension, a stage on which her fury, heartbreak, and determination would play out with all the intensity of a storm breaking over a fragile coastline, and she summoned Liam to her office, her posture rigid, her gaze unwavering, the weight of her presence pressing into the room long before she even spoke, and when he appeared, hesitant, conflicted, guilt-ridden, and silent, she didn't soften, didn't hesitate, didn't waste a single moment on politeness or preamble. Instead, she issued her ultimatum with the precision and ferocity that defined her: "Leave Liam, or I'll fire you," the words slicing through the tension like a razor, leaving a tangible echo that seemed to reverberate through every corner of the office, through every person who might be listening, and through the very walls themselves, as though the building itself recognized the magnitude of the confrontation unfolding within it. Liam, caught between two women who each represented essential parts of his heart and life, felt an almost paralyzing pressure, an internal conflict that twisted and coiled inside him like a live wire, sparking in every nerve, in every thought, leaving him struggling for words, for composure, for a way to navigate a landscape that had no easy path, no simple solution, and every instinct he had told him that Steffi's ultimatum was not a bluff, that her fury was not fleeting, that her love, her ambition, and her resolve were forces he could neither outrun nor ignore. And yet the sight of Hope, radiant and anxious, waiting for reassurance in his gaze, complicated every decision, every word, every gesture, because he had promised Hope a future, a shared life, a commitment, yet his heart refused to submit entirely, tugged as it was toward Steffi, toward memories, toward the depth of a connection forged over years of passion, conflict, and shared vulnerability.